The hidden air filter, choking your engine that almost nobody checks. On March 7th, 2025, about an hour before I planned to lock up the shop, a pickup rolled into my bay with a fresh oil stain blooming across the underside of the engine and an owner who was absolutely convinced he was looking at a blown gasket. He was not angry. He was tired. He told me the truck had been idling rough for 2 months, losing power on hills, drinking fuel, and now leaking oil. A shop across town had already quoted him just under $1,400, valve cover gaskets, a mass airflow sensor, an idle relearn, diagnostic time, labor, the works. He had the printout folded in his shirt pocket like a diagnosis from a doctor he did not trust. Today, I'm going to show you why that scene almost never means what people think it means, and why one of the most common engine is dying symptoms I see traces back to a filter so hidden that most owners do not even know it exists. Here's the part that stopped him cold. The first thing I did was pop the airbox. His engine air filter was spotless. Bright white, barely any miles on it. He had changed it himself a few weeks earlier because he had read online that a dirty air filter chokes your engine. And he was right about that. A clogged intake filter absolutely strangles an engine. But he had done the one thing everyone does. He cleaned the filter he could see and never touched the one he could not. Because your engine does not breathe through one filter, it breathes through two. And the second one, the one almost nobody checks, was packed solid. Let me back up because once you understand this, you will never look at engine problems the same way again. Everyone thinks about an engine breathing in. Air comes through the intake, passes through the air filter, mixes with fuel, and burns. That's the inhale. It's the part you can see, the part with the big plastic box under the hood, the part every quick lube tech waves a flashlight at and tells you needs replacing. But an engine doesn't just inhale, it also has to exhale, and I'm not talking about the exhaust pipe. I'm talking about something happening deep inside the engine that most drivers have never heard a single word about. Every time those pistons fire, a small amount of pressure and unburned gas slips past the piston rings and down into the bottom of the engine, into the crankcase where the oil lives. Mechanics call this blow-by. It happens in every engine ever built, brand new or worn out. It's normal. But it means the inside of your engine is constantly filling with pressure and vapor that has to go somewhere. If it has nowhere to go, that pressure builds until it forces oil out past every seal and gasket it can find. So engineers built a second breathing path to let the engine vent that pressure. It's called the crankcase ventilation system. And on most vehicles, that system has a filter or a breather element of its own. A small one, usually tucked on top of a valve cover or hidden on a hose buried behind the engine, where you would never look unless someone told you it was there. That is the hidden air filter, the engine's exhale. And when it clogs, the symptoms look so much like everything else that drivers and shops spend hundreds chasing ghosts. So what actually happens when that little breather chokes? Think about what blowing out feels like when something is covering your mouth. The pressure backs up. That is exactly what happens inside your engine. The crankcase cannot vent, so pressure climbs. And pressurized engines do ugly things. They push oil past the valve cover gasket, so you get that fresh leak the guy across town blamed on a $400 gasket job. They push oil mist back up the breather hose and into the airbox, which is why I sometimes pull an air filter that is soaked in oil. And here is the cruel part. That elevated pressure and the disturbed airflow throw off the delicate balance the computer relies on to run the engine smoothly. Because here is something most people do not realize. That ventilation path is not sealed off from the engine's air metering. The air moving through it is part of the equation the computer uses to set your fuel mixture. When the breather clogs, that airflow goes haywire. The idle starts to hunt and surge. The engine runs rough at stoplights. Power fades, especially low in the rev range. Fuel economy slips because the mixture is no longer right. And then, eventually, the check engine light comes on, throwing codes that point in completely the wrong direction. System too lean, system too rich, airflow circuit problem, idle control problem. Every one of those codes screams sensor, and not one of them says the actual cause out loud. This is where the uncomfortable truth comes in, and it's the same truth that runs underneath almost every expensive misdiagnosis I see. A scan tool reads codes. It does not read causes. When that truck's computer threw a lean code and an idle code, the shop across town did exactly what the industry is built to do. They matched the code to a part. Lean code, replace the mass airflow sensor. Idle problem, clean or replace the throttle body, run a relearn. Oil leak, replace the valve cover gaskets. 3 real parts. 3 real labor lines, 1 impressive invoice, and not one of them touched the $15 breather that caused all of it. And I want to be fair here, because this isn't always a scam. A lot of techs genuinely never learn to check it. It's not on most maintenance schedules. It doesn't show up on the sticker in your windshield. It's not glamorous. It's not billable in any satisfying way. And a part that cheap doesn't justify a diagnostic fee. So it gets skipped again and again while the customer pays for the symptoms instead of the source. A clogged breather is one of the great imposters in this job. It can imitate a failing sensor. It can imitate a bad gasket. It can imitate a tired throttle body. It sends shops chasing 4 different parts because it disturbs 4 different systems at once. But it's one cheap component doing all the damage, and the moment you clear it, the whole cascade of symptoms tends to collapse at the same time. On that truck, I pulled the breather element. It was black, saturated, clogged solid with oil mist and carbon. I cleared the airbox, fitted a new breather, and reset the system. The leak slowed almost immediately as the pressure dropped. The idle settled within a couple of minutes of relearning. The lean code didn't come back. Total parts cost was under $20. He'd been 1 phone call away from spending $1,400. Now I have to be honest with you, because knowing when this is the problem matters just as much as knowing it exists. A clogged breather is not always the whole story. Sometimes that filter clogs fast because the engine is producing far more blow-by than it should, and that points to something deeper, like worn-out piston rings or tired cylinders on a high-mileage engine. So a fresh breather isn't a cure for a worn-out engine, it's a test. If you replace it and the symptoms vanish and stay gone, you just saved yourself a fortune. If you replace it and it clogs again in a few thousand miles, the breather isn't your problem, it's your warning light, and now you know to look deeper. Either way, you come out ahead, because instead of guessing, you've actually learned something true about your engine. And one more honest note, not every vehicle has a separately serviceable breather you can just pull and replace. Some route everything through a sealed system with a valve instead of a swappable filter element. The principle is identical on all of them. The engine has to vent its pressure, and that path can restrict, clog, or fail. The only thing that changes is what you're inspecting. So the real lesson isn't about one specific part number. It's about learning to think about the exhale at all, because that's the half of the system nobody taught you to check. So how do you actually check it yourself before you hand anyone a credit card? Start with the simplest test in the world. With the engine warm and idling, slowly loosen the oil filler cap on top of the valve cover. On a healthy engine, you might feel a faint suction or nothing dramatic at all. If you crack that cap and pressure visibly puffs out, if it tries to lift off, or if you see vapor steaming up out of the opening, that is a crankcase that can't breathe. You can do the same thing with a slip of paper or an index card laid over the opening. It should sit fairly calm or get gently pulled down by light vacuum. If it gets blown off or flutters hard, the system is backed up. Then open your airbox and look at the air filter and the housing. If there is oil mist coating the inside, oil residue in the bottom of the box, or a damp film on a filter that should be dry, that oil came from the ventilation path, and it is telling you the breather side isn't flowing the way it should. If you find a clogged breather and your vehicle has the serviceable kind, replacing it is genuinely one of the easiest jobs there is. Let the engine cool, locate the element on the valve cover or in the breather hose, pull the old one, seat the new one, make sure every hose is snug and crack-free, and you're done, often in 15 minutes with basic hand tools. Use a quality part. The cheap ones flow poorly and clog early, and you'll be right back where you started. After you've cleared it, give the computer a chance to relearn. Let it idle calmly for a few minutes, then drive gently for a bit, light throttle, steady speeds, before you go hammering on it. The engine needs clean, stable conditions to rebuild its idle and fuel behavior the same way it does after any reset. Flooring it 30 seconds after the fix just teaches it bad habits all over again. And the prevention is almost insultingly simple, which is probably why nobody talks about it. Change your oil on time because dirty, broken down oil produces more vapor and sludge that clogs that breather faster. Don't ignore a vehicle that lives on short trips because an engine that never fully warms up builds moisture and fuel into the crankcase and gums up the ventilation path quicker than a highway car ever will. When you're under the hood for your engine air filter, spend the extra 30 seconds to find and inspect the breather too. And if you start chasing a rough idle, a lean code, a mystery oil leak, or fading fuel economy, check the exhale before you let anyone sell you the inhale. Because here's what I want you to walk away with. Your engine has 2 sets of lungs, and you've only ever been told about one of them. The intake filter gets all the attention, all the marketing, all the flashlight inspections at the oil change counter. Meanwhile, the filter on the other side, the one doing the unglamorous work of letting your engine exhale, sits hidden and forgotten until the day its silence starts costing you real money. The drivers who get taken advantage of are the ones who only know to look where everyone points. The drivers who keep their money are the ones who learned there was a second place to look. That truck owner drove off with his rough idle gone, his leak drying up, his power back, and almost $1,400 still in his account. Not because I'm some genius, because I checked the filter nobody checks. If this changed the way you think about engine problems, hit that like button so more drivers get a chance to see it before they hand over money they didn't need to spend. Subscribe if you want weekly breakdowns that put you back in control of your own vehicle instead of leaving you at the mercy of a printout you don't understand. And if you've ever had a shop quote you a fortune for something a cheap part fixed, drop the story in the comments, because those stories are exactly how the rest of us learn where else to look.